down on what we call Grandma's farm, since this is her farm. And this is a tomato field that we rented out this year. It's a 40-acre field. And right now I'm on my second pass working it with the field cultivator. And it is doing a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job this year working it after they finished harvesting. So really hitting the second time with the field cultivator really is going to level this up pretty good, so I won't have to worry about working it like I normally do, like 3, 4, 5 times on some of these fields that we've rented out in the past, so that's good. So I know I talked about this field in the past, about us putting cereal rye out here, and instead of just keeping it as a cover crop for corn for next year, that we would keep it and harvest it for seed. Now 40 acres worth of cereal rye, that would be a boatload amount of cover crop seed that we would have to handle and store. As of right now, we are not set up to handle that much cover crop seed. Now, I'm not saying that we are as of right now, but we are considering doing some modifications to our grain bin setup. Now, I will be doing a tour on our grain bin setup eventually here, possibly before harvest, because I will touch on that when harvest will be starting later in this video, but it's looking to be probably during harvest I will do that. But anyways, we might be doing some slight modifications to our grain bin setup, slight, maybe even some larger ones than that, and maybe possibly working on getting a way that we could handle and store that much cereal rye if we needed to. So I'll talk more about that, about what kind of changes at least I would like to make to the grain bin setup when I do the grain bin tour video, possibly this weekend. It really all depends if it rains. If not, it's probably going to be like during a break during harvest, because right now we have beans ready down here on Grandma's, just down the road there. 30 acres of them are good to go. The back 40 field, it's marginal if they'd go. Monday for sure they would go, but the problem is there's an 80% chance of rain on Sunday, and we're not necessarily ready to go. Really, we're not going to be really starting until probably Wednesday. I mean, that depends really how much rain we get. I highly doubt we're going to get 1 to 2 inches because they're never accurate on the forecast, but who knows? We want to get those beans knocked out first, since what we plan on doing is, after I get done working this field, we're going to end up planting this field to wheat, because we know we're guaranteed to get double crop beans on this because of the irrigator. Now granted, what kind of yields we're going to get, we don't really know for sure, because double crop beans on yield is really a shot in the dark because of the frost, depending on when we get hit with our first frost. But we're more guaranteed to get double crop beans on irrigated ground than what we are dry land. So not only this field is going to get planted to wheat, but the field that we've been working on taking the woods out, which we've taken 4 acres out of an 8-acre wood, so there's roughly 3 to 4 acres left in that woods left to take out. So that field will also get put to wheat, and our reasoning behind that is because there is a possibility we're going to be considering putting an irrigator there. Obviously, I've talked about this in the past, about once we get that woods cleared, that is the goal, to put an irrigator there and put an irrigator in that backfield. But Dad and I foresee that we could eventually get this woods out more than likely this winter, since the office took up the majority of our time last winter. That's why we couldn't get the woods out last winter. And more than likely, we're about 90% sure that we get that woods knocked out this winter. So we might be looking at putting up an irrigator there. We're not entirely sure. We'll run some numbers. We're not entirely sure on that. So that's a possibility. Now, if we do decide to put an irrigator up on that in the next couple of years, I will be doing a video on that, because that is a pretty cool process to see one of these irrigators, such as this one right here, get built, along with the well being installed as well. So now you're probably wondering where in the world we're going to go with cover crop seed then. What we decided on today, since Dad and I pretty much sat down and kind of estimated where we're going to go with everything for next year as far as crops and crop rotation and everything, because one, we need to be starting to get something on the books for seed, for early invoicing, and two, that way we can kind of figure out, again, where we were going to go for wheat, since we are going to continue with wheat. Talking about the wheat, what we came up with on that wheat over in Stark County, we're thinking we're going to pin it on that it froze. I don't believe that it froze, but there is a possibility that it did. I'm still not entirely for sure thinking that it totally did, but as of right now, we're going to say that it froze. As far as cover crop seed goes, where we're actually going to plant it this year, a couple years ago, and I did talk about this in an earlier video, a couple years ago we planted it on a triangle field there by the railroad, and it's about a 27-ish acre field, and I talked about how we didn't get the yields we were thinking we were going to get because we became dry around early June, and that impacted our cover crop yield, or cover crop seed yield there for the cereal rye there big time, and I think it only made about 30. So since that's probably one of our poorest fields, we're estimating we're going to get between 40 and 50. Now that's going to really depend on if we get timely rains, especially during that late May, early June period. Now if we can get timely good rains during that time, and even into mid-June, we're going to be probably looking at those type of yields there for our cover crop, which that's going to bring us up a little bit higher than what we came out with this year on a total of how many bushels we came out with on rye, which that's fine because we have sources that we can sell it to now, and we're going to continue building those sources up more. That way when we get into a large scale, such as raising it on a 40-acre field such as this with an irrigator, so we can do high management with it, do multiple nitrogen applications with it, kind of how we do the wheat, we would have, again, the ability to handle it and store it later on if and when we decide to do the upgrades that we may do to the grain bin setup, and also have the ability to sell whatever we can't use for ourselves. So going back to harvest then, our local John Deere dealer on Monday is going to be coming out and doing some work on our combine as far as tech upgrades go. The same thing will be happening to our 8530, but not on Monday. We're not going to do it yet on Monday for this. We're going to hold off on doing this because currently they don't have enough of the things that they're installing available yet, so we're going to hold off on doing that. What we are installing I will talk about in a future video. I think you guys are going to think this is going to be pretty cool what we're doing. It has a lot to do with the data management, so you guys can guess down below what we're going to be doing. When we plan on starting, again, we've got beans that are pretty much ready to go. Well, one field that's ready to go right now, that's been ready for a week. Depending on the rain, I guess, again, talking about that earlier, probably Wednesday, Thursday, we'll start. Did pull some samples over on the custom harvest fields, and the corn is ready to go. It's down around 19%, I think, so we're going to roll on that. And after we get these beans cut, because we want to get the beans cut first so we can get the wheat drilled, and once we get that knocked out, we'll hit it hard on this corn. And after that, I don't know, more than likely we'll hit it hard back on our beans again and hit it hard on his beans and kind of flip-flop between finishing his corn up and running our corn. So I'm pretty stoked then that we're going to be running the 12 row then fairly soon, probably next Friday, hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes well next week. So that's how harvest is going, or planning on going right now. Neighbor's over there with his, I don't know what size case quad track, and I think he's got a Landau VT behind that. Doing a pretty good job, I would say, on the seed corn ground.